I'm 82 years old, and I learned this too late about love and silence. I'm sitting alone at my kitchen table as I say this. The same table I once rushed past every morning, thinking there would be time later. There isn't much later left for me now. I know that. I can feel it in my bones when I stand up, in the way the days feel shorter, even when they aren't. I'm not telling this because I want to be remembered. I'm telling it because I don't want what happened to me to stay locked inside me until the end. At this age, you start living with a quiet awareness that doesn't go away. Every sound in the house feels louder because there are fewer of them. The clock, the refrigerator, my own breathing at night. Silence becomes a companion, whether you want it or not. I used to think silence was harmless. I thought it was neutral. I was wrong. When I was younger, I believed love was something you proved by working hard, by staying out of the way, by not causing trouble. I believed talking too much could make things worse. So I kept things inside. I thought that was strength. I grew up in a house where feelings were handled quietly. My father worked long hours and came home tired. My mother kept things running and didn't complain. Nobody asked how anyone felt. You just did what needed doing. That was love, as far as I understood it. So when I left home in my early 20s, I carried that with me. I didn't think of it as damage or limitation. It felt normal. It felt sensible. I met my wife when I was 27. She laughed easily. She talked with her hands. She asked questions I didn't know how to answer quickly. I remember liking that about her, even though it made me uncomfortable. She would tell me stories about her day, about people at work, about things she noticed on the bus ride home. I listened. I really did. But I didn't always respond. I thought listening was enough. When she asked what I was thinking, I often said, nothing much. And most of the time that wasn't entirely true. I just didn't think my thoughts needed air. We married young by today's standards, though it felt ordinary then. We had a small ceremony. I remember her hands shaking a little as she buttoned her coat. I remember thinking how serious everything suddenly felt. The early years were busy. Work, bills, learning how to live with another person's habits. None of it felt dramatic. We were building something, or so I believed. I worked steadily. I wasn't ambitious in a flashy way, but I was reliable. I stayed late when needed. I said yes more than I said no. I wanted to be seen as dependable. I wanted to be good at what I did. At home I was quieter, not cold, just reserved. I assumed my presence spoke for itself. When she was upset, I waited for it to pass. When she was quiet, I assumed she needed space. I didn't ask much. I didn't press. I thought I was being respectful. Years went by like that. Not unhappy years exactly, but not fully alive either. We talked about schedules, groceries, plans for the weekend. We talked about the children once they arrived. We didn't talk much about fear or disappointment or longing. I told myself we didn't need to. We were functioning. We were fine. There were moments, small ones, that should have told me something. Her lingering in the doorway as I put on my coat. The way she sighed before turning out the light. The time she started a sentence and didn't finish it. I noticed those things. I just didn't know what to do with them. So, I stayed silent. I thought silence kept the peace. I thought words could only complicate things. I didn't understand that silence also speaks, And sometimes it says things you never intended. In my 40s, the children were teenagers. The house was loud in a different way then. Doors closing, music playing through walls, arguments that burned hot and then disappeared. She and I became more like managers than partners, coordinating, problem solving, rarely sitting still together. Sometimes she would say, "We don't talk anymore." And I would think, "But we talk all the time." I didn't realize she meant something else. I wish I could say there was a single moment where everything shifted. There wasn't. It was gradual, a slow thinning. She stopped asking me certain questions. I didn't notice right away. When I did, I felt relieved, not alarmed. I told myself we understood each other without words. That was another mistake. By the time I was in my late 50s, the children were gone. The house grew quieter again. That should have been our time. That's what people say, a chance to reconnect. But you can't reconnect to something you never fully connected to in the first place. She spent more time in the garden. I spent more time reading or watching the news. We ate dinner together, but the conversations were short, polite. I told myself this was just what long marriages look like. I didn't see it as a warning. I saw it as normal aging. Then she got sick. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It started with fatigue, then tests, then waiting rooms that smelled like disinfectant and old magazines. I went with her to appointments. I sat beside her. I held her hand. I did all the things I thought mattered. But there were still things I didn't say. There were things I thought I would say later, when things settled down, when the doctors had answers, when she felt better. Later kept moving. One evening she asked me if I was scared. I said, "We'll manage." I thought I was being reassuring. I didn't tell her that I was terrified, that I lay awake at night imagining a future without her. I didn't tell her how much she meant to me in plain words. I assumed she knew. She died when I was 64. It wasn't peaceful, but it wasn't chaotic either. It was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses on your ears. After the funeral, people said kind things. They said we had a good life together. They said she knew she was loved. I nodded. I thanked them. I didn't argue. But at night, alone in the house, I replayed conversations we never had. Words I never spoke, questions I never asked. I realized then that love doesn't survive on intention alone. It needs air. It needs sound. Silence doesn't protect love. It starves it. There are things I can never fix. I can't go back to that kitchen table when we were both younger and say, "Tell me more." I can't sit beside her in bed and admit my fear. I can't undo decades of restraint. I live with that now, not constantly. But it's there, like a low ache that flares up when the house gets too quiet. Old age is full of time to think. Too much time sometimes. Memories come back uninvited. Not the big ones, but the small missed chances. The ordinary evenings that could have been different with just a few words. I'm not drowning in regret, but I am changed by it. If you're listening to this, I don't know where you are in your life. I don't know who you love or how you show it. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I only know this. Silence feels safe when you're young, because you think there will always be another chance to speak. You assume time is patient. It isn't. Love needs to hear itself out loud sometimes. Not in grand speeches, just in honest sentences, simple truths, even awkward ones. I thought being steady was enough. I thought providing and staying was the same as connecting. I was wrong. Now at 82, my days are simple. I walk when I can. I read. I watch the light move across the floor in the afternoon. I talk to my wife sometimes, even though she isn't here to answer. I tell her things I should have said sooner. I don't know if that matters. It matters to me. If this meant something to you, if it stirred a thought you've been putting off, you don't need to do anything dramatic. Just don't assume silence is neutral. It isn't. I've made my peace with most things. This one still sits with me. There isn't much time left for me now, but there might be for you. That's all I wanted to say.